The UN singles out Israel once again. I'm Brian Lilley with the Rebel.media. With all the thuggish, brutal, dictatorial, despotic regimes in the world, the United Nations has a fetish for criticizing one country above all others. I'm speaking, of course, of Israel, the Jewish state, the only democracy in the Middle East. And so it was again last week as the United Nations Human Rights Council met in Geneva to wrap up their current session. They decided to single out Israel. Now, most of the Western democratic countries walked out. The United States, Canada, Great Britain, most European Union member states, even Japan, all saying they were going to take a pass. They're not even participating. But that didn't stop other regimes, other countries, some with very questionable records themselves, from denouncing Israel.
Israel persists in ethnic cleansing, racial discrimination, destruction of homes, aggression against places of worship.
These violations include extrajudicial killing, arbitrary detention, collective punishment, displacement of Syrian families.
That's right. You just witnessed the Syrian regime at the United Nations criticizing Israel for its human rights record, a regime that has been accused of gassing its own people, standing up and saying Israel is in the wrong. But, as they say on late night TV, don't worry, there's more. Other countries lined up, including one that will leave you shaking your head.
These violations are tantamount to war crimes and crimes against humanity.
Some countries are trying to marginalize and even boycott item 7.
The imposition of an apartheid regime.
Colonization and apartheid.
The expansion of Jewish settlements and murdering innocent civilians.
Yes, North Korea, a country that is completely closed off, or almost completely closed off to the outside world, a country that recently beat an American citizen into a coma for taking a propaganda poster, country that actually starves its own people. It's criticizing Israel. Now, as I said, the Western democracies walked out. The United States was not there. Canada was not there. Britain was not there. The EU member states and Japan, none of them there. So who was there to speak for Israel? Well, thankfully, UN Watch is still around, and Hillel Neuer told the committee that they were barking up the wrong tree, pointing the finger at the wrong party.
Democracies like the US and Canada have stayed away because this debate is designed to invert terrorist and victim. On Friday, next to holy sites in Jerusalem, Palestinian terrorists carried out 2 simultaneous stabbing and shooting attacks, killing 23-year-old Hadass Malka. Both ISIS and Hamas claimed responsibility. To his credit, UN envoy Nikolai Mladenov condemned Hamas for praising the attacks as, quote, heroic. Yet why is it that the state of Palestine just spoke and refused to condemn the murder of this woman? Why instead did his government condemn Israel for the deaths of the attackers, calling it a, quote, war crime?
I've called for reform of the United Nations for a long time. Hell, I've called for leaving the United Nations. Former Ambassador John Bolton has talked to me about this, and he says, Brian, what we have to do is have the Western democracies pull their funding unless reform actually happens. So far, reform hasn't happened. It hasn't even been pressed in a long time. During the Obama years, there was no chance that was going to happen. And Prime Minister Stephen Harper in Canada may have wanted it, but Obama wasn't a willing partner. Now that Trump's in power, he may be willing to do it. He doesn't have a willing partner in Justin Trudeau. He doesn't have a willing partner in Theresa May or the European leaders, so he may have to go it alone. But to allow this human rights farce to continue, I won't even call it the Human Rights Council. It is a farce to allow it to continue to single out Israel time and time again, the only country by name it regularly criticizes when you've got Syria, Sudan, North Korea, all these real problems to deal with. It shows that the United Nations is on the wrong path completely. I'd say that we should just pull out of it, let it sink, let it swim, but nobody is willing to go that route, not politically. So at least hold back its funding until they agree to reform, until they agree that Israel is the victim of terrorism in the Middle East and not the perpetrator. If you like the Rebel video you just watched, click here to subscribe and never miss a Rebel video again.